Okay, hi everyone. My name is Darren Grosch. I'm the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and International Student Programs at Los Angeles City College. We're so glad you could join us today for the topic of planning for international study, understanding the U.S. education system. I'll be moderating today's session, and we'd love to know in the comments what's something about the U.S. education system that you would like to learn more about. As you might know, today's session features the latest episode of our popular series, My Dream, My Destination, alongside our partner TOEFL. This series has been a great platform for international students to gain inspiration and guidance. If you haven't already, I encourage you to check out our previous episodes on the Facebook by visiting @Study in the USA or @TOEFL. You'll find a wealth of information and firsthand accounts from students who have embarked on their educational journey in the United States. And if you speak to any international student who's made it to the US, you'll hear that good intentions alone won't make your dreams a reality. And it's important to create a strong plan of action and really, the first step in planning is understanding the intricacies, differences, and features of the U.S. educational system. It's for that reason that our guest, Chanhyuk Park, and I are here today to show you both the student and faculty side of this conversation. Chanhyuk prefers to go by Ken, so going forward, that's how I'll address him. And while the session is pre-recorded, we still invite you to place any questions you'd like answered in the comment section, and someone from Study in the USA or TOEFL will answer them shortly. So with that said, Ken, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where are you studying? And how are you enjoying your experience in the US so far?
Yeah, definitely. First off, I would like to say thank you so much for having me. It is a very honor to be able to speak in this series. My name is Ken Park. I'm a student from South Korea. I arrived in the United States last December, so this June will be my 6th month staying in the United States so far, and I am currently studying Biochemical Engineering in Skagit Valley College. And so far, I've been really enjoying my stay. Everyone's so welcoming to me. I got to know a lot of different people. That's something that I've been really looking forward to. And I've also been able to ensure that I have a good study and life balance. So that's something that I've really been looking forward to, because back when I was in Korea, I really didn't have that balance, and it was more focused towards to studying, and I did not get that much chance to socialize with other people. So far, I've been really enjoying my stay.
That's great to hear, Ken. And personally, I love this topic, and I love working with international students. Just I personally, I've been working in international education really since 2004. My own mother became a U.S. citizen when she was in her 40s, so it was always fun seeing her go through the process of becoming a U.S. citizen, and having the chance to work with international students is a place I hold really dear to my heart. I've had the opportunity to also work with students who are looking to study at different types of institutions. So I've worked at a private school before. I've worked at a community college that's in what we call a single district campus, and I've worked now at a community college that's in a really big district. And so all of these institutions, though the process to get your F1 visa is ideally the same, you get your I-20 and you're going to be going to an embassy or a consulate to meet with somebody to hopefully get your visa so you can come and study. There are some of these other aspects of the application process which are different depending on the type of school you're applying for. So again, I'm excited that I've had that experience, and hopefully I can add that value to this conversation today. And so Ken, I find your story unique in that many students see a study abroad as a dream, right, to accomplish. Where as for you, it was the appeal of a more cooperative education system. Can you expand on what education was like in South Korea and the potential you saw in studying, in the United States?
Yeah, definitely. So, oh, sorry. So in South Korea, the main purpose of education in South Korea seems to feel more like going into a good college. I mean, it might be the same here, but the process that students take to accomplish that is very highly competitive. And the South Korean, I mean, one thing I really don't like about the South Korean education system is that it creates more of a competitive environment for students rather than cooperative environment. So, and like as the word says, like it's really literally the survival of the fittest. Like students compete with each other for a single grade, the top place of their class or their school. And like only and the it also has to do with the fact that a lot of Korean parents want their kids to have a professional job, such as doctors, lawyers, like pharmacists, and those kind of things. So those among the students that are studying in Korea, only 4% of them are able to get into med school. So you can kind of tell how competitive it might be to do that. So growing up in a situation like that, I really didn't enjoy my life. I really didn't get the chance to do the things that I really wanted to do. Rather, I was forced to study it 24/7 every day. So that wasn't a good thing for me. I was feeling stressed, I was feeling pressurized, I was feeling like my life is nothing more than just like repetition after repetition, like studying every day, the same schedule going on for every like 24/7. So that I wanted to escape that. That was not the place that I wanted to be in, and I knew that for sure because I felt like if I would have stayed there, like I couldn't see what I would be doing in the future, and I really couldn't see if I would be able to stay mentally healthy in an environment like that. So I made up my decision to come to the States, and I was really lucky enough to be able to get a suggestion from my counselor to attend a summer program at the University of Pennsylvania. It was a law school program back then because I was interested in going to law school. So I attended that program and I was able to get a glimpse of what the US education system was like. And I found it more fitting to me, the cooperative environment and how everybody was so like compassionate towards others, like willing to help each other like during the program, like even though I was an international student and I didn't know how to fit in, a lot of people offered me to come to study sessions to study together and to do homework together. And, they invited me to dinner, they invited me to all different sorts of things that I had such a positive reinforcement from that experience, which further led my ambition of coming to the States and studying here. And I really wanted to come here because I felt like I would be more happier if I were to study in the States.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, Ken. Well, yeah, and Ken, so let me ask you then, now that you've spent more time in the US, what are some things about school, extracurriculars, and such that have really stood out to you?
Um, the one thing that really stood out to me is that here, it seems to the grading seems to be more focused on homework and group work and other things instead of standardized testing. Back in Korea, your majority of your grade would come from standardized testing, and like your college admission, most students will be taking what's called the KSAT in November, actually. A couple of my friends are taking it this November. And you would take that test and you will apply to college according to the grade that you get from that one test. So it's more like, if you bomb that one test, your chances of getting into a good college is completely impossible almost. Rather in America, even if you bomb a test, for example, you have a lot of chances to make it up. And, if you've been doing your work and if you've been working hard, like one test is not going to ruin your life kind of a situation. So I think that's one thing that is really different from Korea and America.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ken. I just would add, I think one thing that is unique too, at least with here in the US, is, we don't have a national university system. There's not a national university that you would go to, where, as in some countries, there's, a national school. That's where most people would go. And here in the US, each state, has their own, system somewhat, and students are really free to go to and explore a lot of these universities that I think give a lot of different opportunities for students who are really seeking for different things, as you mentioned. And some schools require these SATs or ACT type tests where other schools don't require them. So I think you're seeing a lot of different ways that universities and schools value merit when they're looking at college applicants, which makes it a little bit different. And then in adding that too, you mentioned standardized testing. I think, and Ken, you can probably attest to this, there's a lot of value in group learning. There's a lot of value in doing group projects, and oftentimes you'll work together with students as a team to complete an assignment. I think that's something that you see a lot of here in the US when you're going to school. And then I think also too, there are so many extracurriculars that I think you'll find when you're studying here in the US. There's a lot of value on social growth as well, and using these clubs or outside communities to kind of be a support network for students, when they're coming to study, that it's not just focusing on one thing, which obviously academics are important, but it offers these other support networks, and that social component piece is something that I think students will find a lot of that here when they're studying in the United States. This next question is for the audience. What are the top factors you take into consideration when thinking about where to study? Just as you type your answers in the comment section, I just want to remind you that if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section, and Study in the USA or TOEFL will answer them. So this next part is about planning. And again, I just would say that the US educational system is one of a kind, and we'd love for you to experience that. And that being said, I'm sure, again, Ken, you can attest to this, that none of that would be possible if you don't prepare and plan the right way. And so from my experience, here are a few things I found that are important for students when considering when planning ahead. And I would just add, to kind of go back to the US education system, being here in California, we have a really great higher education system. And again, one easy way to look at that is you have the UC system, you have the California State University system, and then of course you have the community college system. And any student who's trying to obtain a bachelor's degree, let's say, typically you're going to have to, for your first 2 years, take what's called lower division coursework and general education coursework. Doesn't matter if a student's going to UCLA or LACC College. If you're an economics major, you're taking the same core classes for the first 2 years. And then in the case of a community college, once you complete those 2 years of general education and lower division courses, you're able to transfer to a school of your choice upon completing those units. Typically, if If you're looking to transfer to a UC, it's about 63 units. And if it's a CSU, it's about 56 units. And why am I saying all this? Well, if you're a student overseas, I think it's important to think about what your educational goals are. If you're looking to go to a 4-year university and you want to get your bachelor's degree, it's going to be important to think about if you want to go to a UC or a CSU. A UC, typically those are research-based institutions. So, for example, if you want to study business, you would really be studying economics at the UCs, versus if you're wanting to go to, like, let's say a CSU and you want to major in business, that's something that's more practical. So you're going to school to get your bachelor's degree so then you can enter into the business world, right away. And again, if maybe you're wanting to do one of those two options, but it might be a little expensive to do that, a community college is another great alternative where you can get, again, your core courses completed and then transfer to a 4-year university, which would allow you to continue on with your degree. And alternatively, I would just add, for a lot of students, they may not necessarily want to get a bachelor's degree. Maybe they want to get a certificate or an AA degree and then maybe work for a year after completing that. A community college is a great option for those students, because once you complete your certificate, if you've done at least one academic year, you're eligible to apply for OPT. So there's a lot of options that I would just tell any student who's looking at considering a study in the United States, to think about, what are your career goals? Again, are you looking to get a bachelor's and you want to go to a UC? Are you looking to maybe not spend so much money and go to a community college? Obviously, are you looking to go to a research-based institution versus maybe one that's just going to be more getting you ready to enter into the workforce? So those are a few things I think that are important to think about. Just in terms of requirements, when you're applying to any school, some schools may require that you take an ACT or an SAT. Not all schools do, but some of the basic things that everyone's going to ask is to make sure you have your documentation in order. Make sure you have your finances in order. Usually you have to show proof that you have a certain amount of money, or a sponsor that has a certain amount of money that can support your studies for at least one academic year while you're in the United States. Again, that one academic year is important. That's usually 9 months of study typically. So it would be a fall semester and then a spring semester. That's normally what we would consider one academic year. Then, obviously, another important component that everybody needs to show proof of is their English language proficiency. And this is where having taken a test and showing that you've passed that test and knowing the scores that are required to enter into such school is important. TOEFL, again, is this a test that we accept. It's a test that we like our students to take. We know that if they take a TOEFL test and they succeed on the TOEFL test, they're gonna usually succeed at our school. It's an important component when we're evaluating an application. I think that's my key advice for students as an Associate Dean of Academic Affairs, but really what matters most is the firsthand experience of other students. So as you have Ken. So Ken, following up your UPenn summer program, how did you go about navigating the process leading up to your big move? What steps did you have to take to come study in the United States?
Yeah, definitely. So bringing back to your point about, choosing what kind of schools you want to go to. The school that was on my first list was a private high schools. I was actually because since I haven't finished my high school diploma yet, I was looking at applying to a private high school, but that did not work out for me because there were no available spots for 11th grade, which was the year that I would be having to transfer into. So that kind of left me with, technically, do I want to take the GED and just apply to a 4-year institution, or do I want to come to the Washington State and finish my high school here while also taking, college classes. There is a program in Washington State called HSCP, High School Completion Program, which you are eligible to finish your high school diploma while also taking college classes and being able to accomplish your uh associate degree here at community college in Washington State. So I chose to do that because I thought that it was a great opportunity for me to get on hand of my education, and also the great advantage of doing the HSCP program is that you are going to be able to finish high school at least 2 year earlier than your normal peers. So in my example, I would be going 3 years ahead of my peers because since I'm gonna be graduating with associate, I'm gonna be transferring into my third year when I go to a 4 year institution, which and I'm also gonna have my high school diploma with me. So that makes me 3 year ahead of my peers. So that was one thing that was really appealing to me. So I wanted to grab that chance. And the next step that I had to take was, of course, completing the application and submitting all to the school. The documents that I was required to submit was proof of funds of at least $16,000 in US dollars. In my or either my or my sponsor's accounts. In my case, it was my father's bank account, and they did require me to send a bank balance saying that my dad had a balance of $16,000 or more in his account. And the next step that I had to take was, of course, apply for my once I was accepted was to take my I-20 and go to a ambassador a embassy in Korea and talk to an ambassador there to do my visa interview and get my F1 visa. Then I had to go through the steps of preparing to come here. So booking my flight ticket, making sure I had everything in order, and that, I had every supply that I would need to study in the US. So that was the next step that I had to take. And that was quite it. I was here in the States before I even knew it. I arrived here and I was going to school.
Wow, Ken. You know, Ken, I think there is one part of your experience that not many students know about that I'd like to ask you. You're currently staying at a homestay in the US while you study at Skagit Community College. For students who might not be familiar with the concept, can you describe it? Tell us how you found out that as your accommodation, and how do you like it?
So basically, homestay is similar to a rent. It's similar to renting a house, but the only difference is that you're staying with the owner of the house. So you have a host family that would be hosting you, and it depends on what kind of homestay that you're doing, and it depends on from place to places, but usually you would be provided your own private bedroom. And in my case, I do have to share a bathroom with my roommate, but in some other cases, you might be provided with a private bathroom. That depends on your host situation, and it depends on which kind of house you're living in. But typically, you would be provided a private bedroom, and if you're doing the traditional homestay, your host will make you dinner, but you will have to prepare your own lunch and breakfast with the food that your host buys. So every week my homestay host will go out and buy ingredients so that I will be able to make my own lunch and breakfast, and he will be cooking me 4 dinners per week. Usually, I mean, it depends, but usually it's around 3 to 4 dinners per week. And yeah, that's technically and Currently, I'm really enjoying my stay because my host is a really nice person. He cares about his students. He tries to do his best to make sure that every student feels comfortable and welcomed. And also the good thing about doing homestay is that I have a person that I can talk to about my personal life, my problems or any issues that I might have going along the way. If I have any difficulties, I have someone that I can reach out to and reach out for help. And I think this is also a very positive chance to learn, how to live by yourself in a foreign country. Living by yourself in a foreign country is very tough. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. You're separated from your family. You're most likely will be separated from your parents and your loved ones. And there are some times that you feel very lonely because since you are an international student, and if it hasn't been a long time since you arrived in the States, you're most likely not gonna have as much of a connection as you used to have in your home country. So it's sometimes you feel very lonely, and I think homestay is a very nice thing to make sure you have someone that you can talk to, your host. And the way that I found about homestay is that actually Skagit Valley College has its own homestay program where they connect students with host parents. And I would recommend you, if your school has a homestay program, I would recommend going in with that because usually for in the school level, they make sure that your host is a nice person and they do have strict regulations and background checks to make sure that you will have a nice host and you won't end up with someone that is a horrible human being. And they make sure they check in with me to make sure that everything's going smooth and that I do not have any problems or issues with my host. And I think that's a really positive thing because they take care of you. There's someone that is looking after you, and it's really nice. I mean, I love my stay here. If I didn't like my stay, I wouldn't have stayed here for over 4 months now. I'm like 5 months in my homestay program, and I wouldn't have decided to stay if I didn't like my stay here.
That's great, Ken. Um, this next question is for you, the viewers. What are some roadblocks you faced as you plan to study abroad? And as you type your answers in the comment section, I just want to remind you that if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section and study in the USA, or TOEFL will answer them for you. Ken, thanks again for sharing that information about homestays. And I think that is such a valuable resource. I just wanted to kind of shift gears and given your background studying at an English academy back in South Korea, I can't help but wonder how that fits into your planning process. What was your experience like studying at an English academy, and how did that prepare you to take the TOEFL test?
Yeah, definitely. So, while I was studying in an English academy back in Korea, back in when I really didn't have my thoughts clear about whether I wanted to stay or whether I wanted to go to the States to study, I started preparing for TOEFL just in case I wanted to make the final decision that I wanted to study abroad. So, it took me multiple tries, like this is where my advice comes into international students is that, TOEFL isn't a test that you take once and you'll get the score that you want. It takes multiple tries, and most likely on your first try, you will not end up with the score that you're satisfied with. And that's okay. Like it's really not the end of the world. I've seen a lot of students and even myself, be grumpy and sad that, I did not get the score that I wanted. And turn down their dreams of going to America, just thinking that, maybe I'm not intelligent enough, or maybe I'm not suitable enough. Maybe my English ability is not capable enough of studying going to the States. And I do not want students to think like that. It takes time, it takes multiple tries. And, back in my academy, I had to study like 4 months to actually be able to get a grasp of what the test was like and how I'm supposed to, and like eventually you'll get there. Eventually you'll get to the place where you'll get a score that you're satisfied with.
And did you use any resources besides the English Academy to prepare for the TOEFL test? What are some of the resources you'd recommend maybe to first time test takers?
Definitely. For, since I was living in South Korea and I took my test there, this might especially apply for students that are studying in South Korea. I would recommend you to stop by a local bookstore and see if they have any books, or any books that will help you to, they're in Korea specifically. There are publishers that make prep tests for TOEFL, and that have, like, that guide you through the process of helping you prepare for the test. So that is an awesome resource that you might also use. And if you search online, there are a lot of practice set questions available online. I would definitely recommend you taking a look at that. That is definitely helpful. And excuse me. And there are a lot of other things, like, just don't try don't feel that you are going to have to go through the process of preparing all by yourself. If you need help from someone, ask for help. Like, there definitely will be someone that can help you out. And yeah, just be try to prepare your best, do your best, and you will end up achieving your goal.
Oh, so Ken, you've mentioned that you've taken the TOEFL IBT, and I quote, a lot. Now being at an American school, how do you think the test gave you an advantage in preparing for your move?
Yeah, definitely, because TOEFL is a test where it's meant to test your English proficiency. So, for my side, especially, if you have a TOEFL test score, when I was applying, my school did not require me to take a placement test. So I was not required to take any placement tests when I came to my school. I mean, I did have to take the English. Oh no, sorry. My bad. I did not have to take an English proficiency test. I did have to take a placement test, but they exempted me from the proficiency test. So that TOEFL definitely gives the school that you're applying to a accurate gauge of where your English proficiency is, and how fluent you're with and comfortable you are with speaking, writing, listening to the language and using it in daily life. So I would definitely recommend for anyone that is planning to study in the United States, particularly, to take the TOEFL test, because it definitely does help. You will not be wasting your time for doing something that you really do not have to. I highly recommend that you take the TOEFL.
Yeah, I think Ken, just to add to that, I know for us too, at a community college here in California in general, when students, come to a community college, they are not required to take what we call a placement test. They're able to uh, self-place. And what we find is, the students who come to us and they've taken the TOEFL test, and again, that's a test that we use, and we look at English proficiency. TOEFL is one of the tests that we accept, but we find that students who have taken the TOEFL test, typically are really successful when they're coming here and transitioning into taking English classes or courses that are going to require a lot of writing. And again, TOEFL seems to be a really helpful test. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of maybe trial and error, but there's a lot of work that goes into taking the test and a lot of practice. And it really is a good gauge in terms of assessing one's ability for English language. So I know when I see someone and they've taken that TOEFL test, I feel very confident that they're going to do well at our college. You know, Ken, I want to just thank you so much for joining us today and giving us such valuable, insights. Do you have any final pieces of advice for students as they plan for international study?
Oh yeah, definitely. So my final piece of advice is don't stop dreaming. Do not stop. Do not let anything else put you down of your dream. Like I've seen so many students that give up coming to the States because they think that they're just not fit enough to come here. And I just don't want that to stop people from doing what they want. Even if even if that's you, like if you just give up on your dreams, it will keep bothering you in your mind, and you will keep regretting that, I should have tried, just give it a shot. Even if you make it or not, regardless of that, just giving it a shot is, a really good thing to do, I think. Even if you end up not getting rejected, there's always a second chance that you can have. You can apply for the next year or next quarter or next semester, and keep trying. Never give up. And if you dream, always keep dreaming and keep trying. You'll accomplish want to accomplish one day.
Ken, that's pretty inspirational. That's it really is amazing to hear your story. And again, I'm just so thankful for you taking the time to share a little bit about, who you are and what your journey has looked like. At this time, we'd like to share a few questions we've had in the past that also apply to this session. And also, again, Ken, thank you again for joining us and the TOEFL team for making sessions like this, possible. With that being said, I just an additional question for you, Ken. What made you choose to do a homestay over a different type of accommodation?
So the main primary reason why I chose homestay over other accommodations, or the fact that I did not, like I tried, looking for a renting an apartment, I mean, and the rents were too high, compared to what I would be paying if I were to do homestay. And I did not have the confidence that I will be able to live all by myself without any support. So that's the kind of the primary reason why I chose homestay. And plus the other factor that was in there, to be honest, was that my school did not allow me to go in the dorms, because since I was a minor when I applied for this school, I was 17, so I wasn't a adult. You have to be in our school. The regulation was that you have to be over 18 to apply for the dorms. So the only choice that I had left technically was homestay.
No, that's great. Yeah, and again, I think as you alluded to, there are so many different options for housing that you can look at, and homestay, it really is a great opportunity to get settled in and to learn a little bit more about American culture. And I think that's really great that you've chosen that path for yourself. Yeah, a question that looks like I've been asked is, what is the best way international students can stand out in their applications? I think, looking at that question, I think it depends on what kind of school you're applying for. If you're applying to go to an art college, you're going to want to have a really good portfolio that you're going to want to prepare. A lot of times art colleges or art schools will have opportunities to meet with admissions officers, and they could help you with your portfolio review. So I think that's one thing to consider if you're looking to go that route. If you're a student athlete, maybe you're a baseball pitcher in Taiwan, or maybe you're a water polo player in Europe somewhere. If you have video of that, or if you post that to YouTube, you can send that over to the ISP admissions team. Or, that might be a good way to get yourself noticed. So that's another aspect to consider. For community colleges, again, applications vary. Some community colleges will ask you for, a personal statement. And if they do, I think it's important to, talk a little bit about some of the, not only reasons why you want to come study in the US, but maybe some of the extracurricular things you do in your home country. Would that be something you would want to continue doing in the US? What are your educational goals? What are you looking to do beyond the community college? I think talking about those on a personal level will be really helpful for you. Obviously, if you're again applying to a private school or a public institution, and those requirements all can vary, but usually they will also always ask you for a personal statement. And again, I think talking a little bit about, a personal story, why are you wanting to come and study in the US is something that I think people reading your personal statement will be drawn to. And I think really, extrapolating from that and putting that on the paper will be really helpful for you when you're coming, to the US. Again, not every school requires an ACT or an SAT or a GRE. Obviously, if you're going to grad school, there are different tests you might need to take. But I think determining the type of school you want to go to, understanding what those requirements are, understanding if you have a major that you're, really dedicated to, again, that can go back to your personal statement, but why are you choosing that specific, school to go to? How is that school going to help you realize your dream? So I think those are things that I would consider when you're at least creating a personal statement and applying to a school. Ken, this is the last question for you. What has been your favorite part of the US and studying here so far?
I think I mentioned this briefly in one of the questions above, but it's the work and life, the study and life balance I have in the States. Back in Korea, I really didn't have there was no such thing called balance in my life. It was all gauged towards studying. And, I really did, it was really even hard to find a time to play with my friends and, to have food with them together. It was so hard. And so, but now, I can make time to do my hobbies, do what I want to do. And, even in the weekends, I can find time to, go out, do some exercise, get to meet some people, maybe grab a lunch together, maybe grab some food, maybe go watch a movie or whatever, whatever that I want to do, I can find the time to invest in what what human can wants to do, except for a student what student can has to do. There's a balance between the two. I mean, I'm not saying that you don't have to study hard. You do have to study hard, but what I like about the States is that, schools do provide a little bit of a balance between your personal time and the time that you have to spend studying. And it's just that, in the United States, if you get your work done, the rest of the time is yours to use. So, I mean, you could, I've seen some students not like to finish their homework early and in the evening just, chill, watch YouTube, watch, Netflix, have some time with their family, you know, go out for a nice dinner and things like that. Those are things that were really hard or impossible for me to do when I was living in Korea. And now, I mean, I have more flexibility of my time. And, this might be a good or bad thing, depending on how you think about it. Like the fact that you have more freedom means that you have more responsibility of, you are the one who are dividing the time up and, deciding how much time you're going to spend on what. and that kind of that decisions, that freedom comes along with responsibility. So you have to be responsible, and you have to make sure that you're getting all of your schoolwork in. But at the same time, if you are being a responsible and human being, you have the rest of the time you can use for whatever you want to do.
Ken, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, thank you all so much for tuning in to today's session, Planning for International Study and Understanding the U.S. Educational System. Ken, it was a pleasure having you here. Be sure to follow at TOEFL and at Study in the USA on social for even more resources for your journey towards studying in the U.S. And again, thank you all so much.